Nobody noticed the janitor. That was the first reason the cubs trusted him. In the towering palace-spire of Queen Vaeloria's royal court, everyone important moved with purpose. Guards marched in polished silver armor. Advisors floated through crystal corridors, whispering about diplomacy and war. Scientists monitored the behavior of the royal cubs with obsessive caution. But Owen Grady? He cleaned floors. That was it. At least, that was what everyone believed. Every morning before the first light of the artificial suns reached the upper chambers, Owen pushed his old maintenance cart through endless palace hallways, while humming old Earth songs nobody recognized. He cleaned dust from glowing walls, spiced broken vents, collected abandoned datapads, invisible work, invisible man, exactly how he liked it. Most humans working within the Vaelorian Empire dreamed of status, prestige, promotion. Owen only wanted peace. After 20 years in military service across the outer colonies, peace had become precious. The palace gave him that. Quiet, routine, distant from war, at least most days. Today was not one of those days. The alarm started just after dawn. Royal cub missing. Owen sighed immediately. Agan. Palace guards rushed past him down the corridor, while holographic warning symbols flashed across the walls. Search the eastern gardens. Seal the lower halls. No unauthorized personnel near the nursery. Owen calmly continued mopping the floor. A young guard skidded to a stop beside him. You there? Did you see a cub pass through here? Owen glanced toward a nearby laundry basket. Nope. The guard cursed and ran off. The moment he disappeared around the corner, a tiny silver creature slowly lifted its head from inside the basket. Large glowing eyes blinked at Owen innocently. Owen leaned against his mop. You know they're going to blame me eventually, right? The cub chirped softly. It couldn't have been more than 6 months old by Vaelorian standards, small enough to fit inside both of Owen's arms, covered in shimmering silver-blue fur, with tiny undeveloped horns curving above its ears. Officially, the cub's name was Prince Kaelor, future heir to the Vaelorian throne. Unofficially, Owen called him Trouble, because trouble escaped constantly. The cub crawled out of the basket and immediately climbed onto Owen's shoulder like it belonged there. Yeah, Owen muttered. You're lucky you're cute. The cub made a pleased rumbling sound. Then another tiny shape emerged from behind the basket, then another. Owen froze. Oh no. 3 more royal cubs peeked out nervously, all hiding together. Owen stared at them in disbelief. How in the hell did 4 of you escape this time? The smallest cub sneezed. Behind him, palace alarms continued echoing. Owen rubbed his face tiredly. This is becoming a habit. The cubs ignored him completely and climbed onto his maintenance cart. One curled up beside a stack of towels immediately. Another began chewing on the edge of his jacket. Owen sighed. He should report them. That would be the smart thing, the responsible thing. Instead, he looked around the empty hallway and lowered his voice. You've got exactly 10 minutes before the entire palace locks down. The cubs stared at him happily. None moved. Fantastic. Nobody understood the cubs. That was the problem. The Vaelorians were one of the most advanced species in known space. Elegant. Intelligent. Telepathically linked through emotional resonance, but their cubs? Completely different, wild, energetic, emotional, and dangerously sensitive to fear, especially fear from adults. The royal guards never understood that. Every time a cub escaped, they chased them aggressively through the palace, trying to secure the heirs, which only terrified them more. Except around Owen. Around him, the cubs relaxed instantly. No tension, no fear, no pressure. Even the palace scientists were confused. He lacks proper royal handling training. One researcher complained during a council meeting. And yet the cubs voluntarily seek him out. Another admitted reluctantly. Queen Vaelira herself sat silently at the center of the chamber, listening carefully. Tall and regal, with silver robes flowing like liquid light, she radiated authority powerful enough to silence entire rooms without speaking. "The human janitor," she said softly. General Tharos nodded stiffly. "Yes, my queen." "And the cubs continue returning to him?" "Constantly." The queen's glowing eyes narrowed slightly. "Why?" Nobody had an answer. Meanwhile, Owen sat cross-legged inside an old maintenance room, sharing snacks with 4 royal cubs. "This," he told them seriously while opening a protein ration pack, "is classified human cuisine." The cubs watched with absolute fascination. Owen broke apart pieces of a sweet protein bar and handed them out carefully. Prince Kaelor devoured his piece instantly before trying to steal another. "Hey, personal boundaries." The cub ignored him completely and climbed into his lap instead. Owen laughed quietly. Manipulative little gremlin. A soft sound interrupted the moment. Tiny footsteps. Owen looked up. Another cub stood hesitantly in the doorway. Then another. His eyes widened. "Oh, come on." Within seconds, nearly a dozen cubs flooded into the maintenance room. Some chirping excitedly. Others dragging blankets behind them. One carried a stolen palace cushion, almost twice its size. Owen stared in horror. "How are you all getting out?" Prince Kaelor proudly chirped, like it was his accomplishment. "Oh. You're organizing prison breaks now?" The cub puffed its chest proudly. Owen pointed accusingly. "I knew you were the mastermind." The cubs surrounded him immediately, climbing onto his shoulders, lap, and maintenance cart. For the first time in years, Owen laughed genuinely, not forced, not polite, real laughter. And outside the maintenance room door, Queen Vaelira watched silently. The guards behind her looked horrified. "My queen," General Tharos whispered. "The cubs should be removed immediately." But Vaelira raised one hand. Silence. Inside the room, Owen remained completely unaware of her presence. One cub had fallen asleep against his chest already while another chewed lazily on his sleeve. No fear, no distress. Only comfort. The queen watched carefully. Then she noticed something astonishing: the cub's emotional resonance field. The invisible psychic energy all young Vaelorians emitted was completely calm. That never happened. Royal cubs constantly projected anxiety under heavy guard supervision. But here? Peace, warmth, safety. General Tharos frowned deeply. "It makes no sense." "No," Vaelira said quietly. "It makes perfect sense." The general blinked in confusion. "My queen?" She looked toward Owen again. "He treats them like children." That evening, Owen finally discovered he was in trouble. 2 royals guards escorted him directly to the throne chamber while at least 8 cubs attempted to follow him through the hallways. "Traitors," Owen muttered as guards blocked the cubs gently. Prince Kaelor screeched dramatically in protest. "This is your fault," Owen told him. The cub responded by biting a guard's boot. The throne chamber doors opened slowly. Owen stepped inside nervously. Queen Vaelira sat waiting, alone, which somehow made things worse. Owen bowed awkwardly. "Your Majesty." "Human Owen Grady, that's me. You are aware that hiding royal heirs is considered a severe offense." Owen exhaled slowly. "Yeah, figured that part out." "And yet you continued doing so." He hesitated, then shrugged slightly. They seemed happier. The queen studied him carefully. "You were once military." "Not a question." Owen nodded slowly. Long time ago. You served during the Carthan border wars. His jaw tightened slightly. Yes, I reviewed your history. Owen looked mildly uncomfortable now. That must been boring reading. Not particularly. Silence lingered briefly. Then the Queen asked the question nobody else had. Why do the Cubs trust you? Owen blinked. That's what this is about. You avoided the question. He leaned back slightly. Well, because I don't treat them like royal property. The Queen remained silent. Owen continued carefully. Everyone here acts scared around them. Careful, stiff. The guards chase them every time they wander off. Scientists monitor every sound they make. He shrugged. They're kids. Smart kids, sure. But still kids. Vaelira's glowing eyes softened slightly. And you are unafraid of them? Owen laughed quietly. Mom. I once survived 3 weeks trapped inside a Carthan trench with plasma spiders eating through the walls. The Queen blinked slowly. Plasma spiders? Big ones. A pause. Then unexpectedly. The Queen smiled, very slightly. It changed her entire appearance, less ruler, more mother. You speak to them differently, she observed. Because they listen. No, Vaelira said softly. Because they feel safe. That word hit harder than Owen expects. Safe. He hadn't heard that word associated with himself in a long time. The Queen rose slowly from her throne. The Cubs are emotionally linked to those around them, she explained while approaching him. Fear spreads quickly among them. Anxiety. Aggression. She stopped directly in front of him. But around you, they experience none. Owen rubbed the back of his neck awkwardly. I just clean floors. No, Vaelira said quietly. You give them something this palace has failed to provide. And what's that? The Queen looked toward the chamber doors, where faint cub chirping could already be heard outside. A normal childhood. From that day forward, everything changed. Officially, Owen remained a janitor. Unofficially, he became the royal cub caretaker, to the horror of nearly every palace official. You cannot allow a maintenance worker unrestricted access to the heirs. General Theros protested. The Queen ignored him completely. Instead, she watched security footage of 20 cubs following Owen through the palace, like ducklings. One rode on his shoulders. Another slept inside his cleaning cart. 3 more chased his mop across the hallway, while Owen pretended to lose the battle dramatically. The cubs squealed with laughter. The Queen smiled softly. Then, the palace lights suddenly shifted red. Emergency alarms activated instantly. Every cub froze. Guards rushed into the throne chamber. My Queen. Unauthorized vessel approaching. The atmosphere changed immediately. Fear spread through the palace like wildfire. And somewhere deep in the royal nursery, the cubs began screaming. Vaelira stood instantly. Report. A warship entered orbit without clearance. General Theros said urgently. No identification signal. The Queen moved toward the command hall immediately, then paused. Because through the chaos, she noticed something strange. The cubs weren't running toward guards, or soldiers, or their handlers. They were running toward Owen. Dozens of tiny silver cubs flooded through palace corridors, desperately searching for the human janitor. Terrified, crying, panicking. And when they found him, everything changed. Owen dropped to one knee immediately as cubs climbed into his arms and lap. It's okay, he said calmly. Easy now. Deep breaths. The cubs clung to him tightly. Their emotional resonance slowly stabilized. Fear faded. Even nearby guards visibly relaxed from the emotional pressure. General Theros stared in disbelief. How is he doing that? Queen Vaelira already knew. Because the cubs trusted Owen more than the guards, more than the palace, more than royalty itself. Not because he was powerful, not because he was important, but because he made them feel safe when nobody else could. Then this. The palace AI spoke again. Unknown. Vessel transmitting, diplomatics, clearance, the main screen activated. A human face appeared, older, scared, smiling. Owen Grady, the man laughed. You disappeared into alien royalty and became a babysitter? Owen's eyes widened. Davis? The man grinned, wider. Good to see you alive, old friend. Relief spread instantly through the chamber. No attack, no invasion. Just an old military transport, requesting emergency docking. The crisis ended almost immediately. But the Queen barely noticed, because she was watching the cubs. Still gathered tightly around Owen, still calm beside him. And for the first time in generations, the future heirs of the Vaelorian Empire looked genuinely happy. Later that night, Owen sat quietly beneath the palace skylights, while dozens of cubs slept around him, in tangled piles of blankets and tails. Prince Kaelor snored softly against his chest. The Queen approached silently. You could have been many things after the war, she said quietly. Commander, Admiral, Governor. Owen smiled faintly without looking up. Tried all that. And instead you chose this. He looked around at the sleeping cubs. One tiny cub held onto his sleeve, even while asleep. Honestly? The Queen waited. Owen smiled softly. This matters more. Vaelira looked at him for a long moment, then at the cubs, and she finally understood something her entire empire had forgotten. Strength alone did not build the future. Safety did. Kindness did. Trust did. And somehow, the invisible human janitor had given the royal heirs something no palace ever could: peace. Prince Kaelor stirred sleepily against Owen's chest before curling closer. The Queen smiled softly, then quietly dimmed the palace lights, so neither the janitor nor the cubs would wake. Because for once, the future of the empire was sleeping peacefully.